Okay, so this is going to be a follow-up video to the previous video I've done where I replaced the thermal pads on the Gigabyte Eagle RTX 3080s. Now you can check out more detail on how the thermal pads were replaced in the link above or in the description below. This is just going to be a quick video to show you that the 3mm pads that I did put on the copper plate are a bit too high. So they're a bit too thick, and I think 2mm would work better. All is good for the memory, and I am getting pretty much 100 megahash on both of these cards. However, since I've replaced the thermal pads, I am getting higher GPU temperatures, especially when mining ET hash here. So 64 degrees, before I was getting around 57 degrees. So I'd like to drop that back, and I am suspecting that it's because the thermal pads on the copper plate only, so it's the thermal pads on that copper plate right there that sit between the GPU core and the copper plate. The thermal pads there that are 3mm are a bit too thick, and I don't think that it's pressing down enough on the GPU core, even though there's the Gigabyte GC Extreme thermal paste in there. It is effective, but it's not enough. So I'm going to replace those to 2mm, and then I'm going to try this again, and this time I am going to use MX4 Arctic MX4 thermal compound because I've run out of the Gigabyte Extreme compound. So I'm going to be using the MX4 thermal compound, and this should be just as efficient as well. So I'm going to make this a quick video, so I'm just going to open up the card and replace those pads on the copper plate. As I said, if you want more detail, you can check out the description below for more detail on how to actually replace the pads. The pads between the back plate are fine. Those 3mm pads in there, those were fine. So that's 3mm, but between the copper plate and the GPU core, 2mm I suspect will be better and will help me to get lower GPU temperatures. Okay, so these are the pads right here on the copper that I've currently got 3mm, although it seems okay because as you can see I'm getting that squish in there with the chip, so it is going down into the thermal pad, but that 3mm is a bit too high. So when the silicone here is pressing against the core, I don't think it's pressing down with pressure enough, so it's not staying as cool as it can stay. So as you can see, all the other thermal pads, I also had replaced these thermal pads here. You can see the chips where they were squished in, and those are the 2mm ones. The 2mm ones, these ones here, are the ones that will fit on the large resistors and on the other chips right there. I'm going to be replacing these ones. Do not throw these away, okay? At least they don't have a lot of oil on them. So I'm just going to be saving those. So they're still going to be effective. So I'm just going to peel those off and just save them with my other 3mm ones, and I'm going to replace the 3mm with the 2mm just on the copper. Okay, so the 2mm pads are now in on the copper. On the outside, like I said before, on these I used 2mm, but these can be 1.5mm as well. I've cleaned up the thermal paste here and here on the GPU core, and that should be fine. This strip down here, you don't actually need to fill it all, although the square brackets are from here to here. You don't actually need to use that much of a long strip. You can use a shorter one because that's going to pretty much just cover that chip there. Here I suspect that another 2 memory modules could be installed, giving this 12 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory instead of the 10 gigabytes it currently has, but you really just need to cover that chip there. So now I'm just going to apply some Arctic MX4 thermal compound to the GPU core, and we'll close this up and see how the temperatures will be for the GPU core while mining. Okay, so the thermal paste is applied. I've even put some on the copper side. You don't need to put too much, so I've done a thin layer there on the copper side and a bit here on the GPU core. Those will all now just combine and come together. Gonna close it up and see how it goes. Okay, so here's the card that I just replaced the 3mm pads with 2mm pads on. At idle, it's at 41 degrees, so I'm just going to start up the miner. All overclock settings are still the same. I haven't touched those, and we'll see how much the temperature is going to rise to. Hopefully less than the 65 it was before. Okay, so here I am at 100 mega hash on the second card and 98 on the card that I just replaced the pads on the copper side. And the temperature now is currently at 60 degrees, so that's not too bad. Fan duty is at 76%. It used to be over 90% before, so that seems to be holding at 61 right now, which is much better than the 65 and 66 that I was getting before. On the back plate here, between the back plate and the underside of the board, those are still 3mm, and that's what you need because that gap is quite wide. But between the copper and the top of the chip, 2mm thermal pads work better. And I am now using the Arctic MX4 thermal compound. Guys, I hope that you found this video useful. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so down below, smash that like button and hit the notification bell for more videos when they come out on my channel. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and thanks for watching.